afternoon, or evening, depending on when you're watching this. Welcome to Cafe Frog. Today I'm going to be going over some of the terrain, what we're going to be doing for that going forward, and some of the troubles I ran into along the way. This video was intentionally going to be longer and also be earlier, but it's been a pretty long week. I think it's been a whole week. I don't know, it feels like longer, but I'll just jump right into this and talk about what's going on here. So the terrain that we have here, it doesn't look too bad. I mean, I was pretty happy with it for our game jam, but there was one pretty big problem that was kind of posing to be a little bit of an issue. So the terrain right here is just a 3D model that was brought in, made in Blender and brought in here, and then I used grid maps to basically, take this flower or this other object that my partner Kyle made, all these very nice objects, and paint them around the world. We can put flowers and trees and grass where we want them. However, if I were to say take this grid map here and lower it to say place an object down here on the ground, which this is also part of the same terrain, I would come into a different issue, and you can see it a bit more over here, is that these flowers are now floating above the ground. And so let's lower the level one more time. Well, now the flower is sunk into the ground, and you can actually see it clipping to the bottom. So the horizontal layers and cell levels of the grid map just weren't aligned, and that was tricky. So I thought about it, and I was like, well, why don't I just make the entire terrain using grid maps? Why don't I just make a bunch of tiles, squares and corners and ramps, and make that the terrain? And that's what I did here. I made an entire tile set here. You can see we have corners, we have straightaways, we've got sandy paths and gravel paths and dirt paths and all that. And I made a whole ton of these, and they were great, honestly. I'm not great at Blender. I'm still learning a lot, but I was proud of the simple stuff I was able to accomplish here, with texturing as well. And I created all of those, and those were great. And I brought them back into Godot, and I can't really show it at the moment, but I found a very big issue with Godot's grid maps. It's a very underdeveloped tool. I had, for example, I have all these half paths here. And my thought was that, okay, I'll bring that into Godot, and then I'll just flip the tile whenever I need a left and right path. That didn't work. There is no flip option for tiles in Godot. That was something I could not do. And after kind of fighting with it, trying to export and bring in more files, do it again, try again, different ways, I gave up and I decided, okay, we are going to do the terrain from scratch again. I decided to do a very similarly styled terrain as before, building it in Blender completely. But this time, I made sure to align the horizontal layers of my terrain at specific increments. So that way, when they are brought into Godot, this level right here, this top horizontal, playing area or plane, is exactly 8 increments above the ground plane here. Meaning that when I am in Blender, when I'm in Godot, setting up so many programs here. When I'm in Godot and I am placing flowers, say, on the ground here, they will be perfectly on the ground. And then I can go up 8 levels, or what would be 8 levels if this was my new terrain. I can go up 8 levels and paint them right here, and it will be perfectly aligned. I don't have to worry about clipping and stuff like that. That way I can make terrain in Blender, just like this. I can texture it in Blender and bring it into Godot and then start putting little decorations, trees, stuff like that, objects that will be placed around the map. And that's going to solve that problem. Originally, I did intend to have some textures and get those set up, and honestly, I intended to show you this in Godot here, but unfortunately, it's been a very, very busy week outside of making this game. And so, this is what I have right now. But I've been working on some other things that I haven't really talked about yet. and we'll be showing that in the next video. Yeah, the only other thing to mention, I came to another solution, which is I'm completely cutting out the faces of the terrain where the water is. And what this will do is that once it's brought into Godot, right now, Stubert can actually walk into the water because there is terrain down there. So by cutting out the faces completely and having absolutely nothing there, there will not be a navigation map generated there, which means Stubert cannot walk into the water. It's a interesting outside of Godot method of fixing that, but it does make it simple. We don't have to worry about adding more collision shapes, and it should be a bit more performance friendly. But yeah, thank you so much for sticking around and watching this. Hopefully our next video is going to pose a lot more interesting and have a lot more interesting things to see and to show you. But progress is progress, and I gotta remind myself I'm making this series both for myself and for you. But so that I can make it for myself and say, you know what, this week maybe I didn't get as much done as I would have liked, but I did get stuff done. Kyle is also working on stuff behind the scenes. You know, he's just been very busy, so I haven't seen what he's working on, but I know he's also working on a lot of terrain as well, so we should have a lot of chunks to show coming up here, and hopefully we can show off our chunk loading system, which is a performance-friendly way of playing the game where when Stubert's right here, only the 4 chunks around him will show, and if he like goes to the corner, the chunks behind him deload, you know, like this, and then the chunk up in front of him would load in. And that's a system Kyle had actually got set up and working, and then during the game jam I came in here and I made terrain and everything else and totally botched it up. So for some reason there's no chunk loading at the moment, but the system is in here. Kyle's just got to go in and tweak it. But anyway, yeah, thank you so much for sticking with us here and tuning in, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. Take care, drink some water, and I'll see you next time.